Hey guys, Clumsy here. Welcome back to the DC-6. Super excited for today's flight because we are trying this out for the first time without the AFE, the Artificial Flight Engineer, also known as Doug. It's going to be a big step. We're going to be taking care of everything, and who knows what we will find. Anyway, what I found in the forums, in the FlightSim.2 website, is there is actually a very interesting checklist now. So even without the AFE, we still have some guidance. We have a checklist, so we make sure that we are not going to miss out on any steps. And if we manage to get stuck, we cannot find a certain part, then we can always use this particular handy feature. Look at that. Beautiful. It actually highlights the parts that have to be checked and in which state they need to be in. Super cool. So stay tuned. I have an ASMR treat for you right after this intro. Let's do this. Hope you guys enjoyed that. Engines are good. Fuel booster pumps are off. Fuel pressure, all good. Oil pressure, RPM, all temperatures. Looking everything as expected. Let's turn that engine selector off. Looking good here. I have been underestimating Doug's abilities, and after that startup sequence, I think I have newfound respect for our flight engineer. Oh my goodness. Everything looks good. Let's set off the parking brake. Reversers on. Start backing up here. And sorry for the volume, guys. Let's go ahead and close the windows so you can hear me a bit better. But don't you love the sound of those radial engines? I know you do. Oh, one sec. Let's just align ourselves here. And let's get a view of the majestic Mount Mayon at our back here, starting off in Legazpi here in the Philippines. There's the view. Oh my goodness. Now it is starting to get too fast for me. I think it's a bit downhill on this stretch. Setting flaps to 20 for takeoff. Cowl flaps 4 degrees for takeoff. To be honest, I'm not sure if we should be doing this later on. I remember Doug was doing this right before takeoff and not during taxi. But we'll observe our CHTs here. Cylinder head temperatures. Removing the gust lock here so we have full control. Flight controls with full travel. Pitch. Roll. Looking good. Extending the landing lights. That takes around 5 seconds. And in the meantime, let's turn on the closest thing we have to strobes, which will make our nav lights blink in and out. Should be good enough. Turn on the landing lights. Let's enter the runway. And we'll do a bit of back taxi there. Turn around at the end. Departing from runway 06. Runway looks clear. Takeoff checks are done. Pushing throttles forward 30 inches of manifold pressure. We should be fully stopped here, but I want to test something out. Anyway. Stable. Looking good. Let's push forward to dry takeoff. 53 inches. Airspeed's alive. Oh, it feels so good having full control of the throttle. Not letting Doug take care of it anymore. Runway starting to thin out in front of us. Will we have enough space? Maybe I should have made use of all that extra space a while ago. That's okay, we have enough. Rotate. Just a very little pitch up. Looking good. Positive rate. Gear up. Gets a bit tricky too, because we have to manage our throttles on our own. So we'll have to move to METO power in a bit. That's going to be 48 inches at 2600 RPM. But first, let's bring up our flaps here. Flap 0. Pitch to 140 knots. Lower the manifold pressure down to METO power, 48 inches. That should bring the BMEP down. Starting to lower the RPM now. We can hear the engine. The sound changing with it as well. That is beautiful. METO power is set. Not pitching correctly here. I'm beyond the 160. That's okay. Minor details. Let's keep it up here. Start our turn to the right. And let's start going to climb power. 40 inches, 2400 RPM. 40 inches is set. 2400, slowly but surely getting there. You hear the purr, the hum of the engine. That is beautiful. There she goes. Thank you and see you next time out, man. Leveling at 4,000 feet here, just to check out some step climbs. Let's lower the manifold pressure to cruise power. 33 inches. That looks good. RPM will lower to 2250 as well right there. Looks nice. And altitude hold at 4,000 feet. Perfect. Now at cruise setting, mixture to auto lean for all engines. Let's also turn off the hydraulic system bypass right there, because we won't need that. That's mainly for the flaps, the landing gears, which we won't be extending here. Cowl flaps we are also setting for cruise. That's basically closing them. You might have noticed we actually are not tracking any VOR at the moment. We are, as I think what they call it is dead reckoning. We're not in range of any of the VORs, but we know that we're headed the right way based on our flight plan. So it's a matter of trust at this point. You might have seen the needle move a bit there though, so I'm expecting that it should go alive at any point. Maybe there are some just mountains in the way. In the meantime, let's go and check our instruments. Gauges look good. Cylinder head temperatures, pressure temperatures, looking pretty good, I think. Not doing half bad even without Doug around. Still no VOR. Yikes. Oh, there it is. Perfect. Alright, there we go. Okay, now we're headed somewhere. Setting a 210 course towards the VOR. That's looking pretty good. Alright, now we're headed somewhere. 96 miles still from VOR, so plenty of miles to go, but let's go to localizer mode here and start tracking it. Let the autopilot take care of it for now. And in the meantime, why don't we take a look at some charts? Because we are at 4,000 feet, but I think we might be better off climbing higher in terms of speed. Now the fun begins. So here we are, and you can see that in general, you can pause the video here. We are getting a higher true airspeed means we'll be traveling faster at the cost of increased pounds per hour. So higher fuel consumption, higher speed with higher altitude, which is very different from the usual jet engines that we're operating, right? Because with jet engines, usually the higher you go, the less the fuel you'll be burning. Here it's the opposite. Okay, let's try this out. I guess what we can do is, well, we can increase our climb for now, and then later on we can increase our power as we start losing airspeed. Right, 1,000 feet per minute. Bring up the RPM back to 2,400 and bring up the throttle manifold pressure back to 40 inches. We should be at our climb power now, looking pretty good. So far so good, but let's also open our cowl flaps here for a climb. Get a bit more ventilation so that our engine will be able to breathe and the cylinder head temperatures won't be heating up too much. Let's double check here. Oh, wait a minute, I have an orange thing. Okay, forgot you have to set mixture to auto rich when climbing. There we go. Okay, nice. Some yellow items, but that looks good. In general, yellow should be okay, especially when we're back to climbing. Now this carb hit heat thing, I'm still trying to study. I'm just keeping it out of the icing conditions as much as possible, although I don't think you really need that for the entire flight. I think carb heat you mainly need at maybe mostly descent and maybe even cruise, but just to be on the safe side, still figuring it out. If you have tips for me, guys, let me know. Okay, let's open up the cowl flaps a bit more because we are getting some hot cylinder heads in there. Looks like the carb heat needs to be upped as well just to prevent any possible icing, although not really sure during climb that's likely. Maybe I don't need to do this, but just to be on the safe side. Yeah, this is actually quite fun, balancing all these things, looking at the gauges, and there we have a double check in the engine stress visualizer. Everything looks good now. A-okay. So much more things to do. Didn't know Doug did so much before behind the scenes. We're now at our new cruising altitude, flight level 120, and it's time to check out the approach here. Going to Puerto Princesa. This is the ILS 27 approach, but right now I'm calculating how our top of descent should be like. So currently cruising altitude is at 12,000 feet. We have the initial approach fix, which is we need to be at 2,500 feet by the time we reach the initial approach fix there at Morix. So our altitude to lose will be 12,000 minus 2,500. That would be 9,500. Yes, I think so. Did I do it right? Yes, okay. And then we have 9.5 times 5. Now I can't do that anymore on my own. 47.5, there you go. And then we add 20 miles as a buffer because we need to slow down. So that extra 20 miles will allow us to slow down within flap extension speed. So that's going to be a total of 67.5. So that's 67.5 nautical miles from the initial approach fix of Morix. But Morix itself is 12 miles away from the airport. It says here 12 DME from the VOR. Right? So that means all in all we need to be at 67.5 plus 12 equals 79.5, and that is our actual top of descent. So we are tracking Puerto Princesa VOR when we are around 80 miles from Puerto Princesa. That's when we'll be starting our descent. Sounds good to me. Welcome back, guys. Quite a bit of time has actually passed. We are near our top of descent. Really, look at that. Almost 80 miles to go from Puerto Princesa. Clouds looking beautiful. over the sea, everything indicating green in the engine stress visualizer. Let's start our descent here, remove the altitude hold, and then start descending in earnest. There we go. So we're going to descend at 1,000 feet per minute, and then later on we'll tone down the power settings as well to make sure that we don't overspeed. We have our descent checklist. Windshield heat control, this is something that I have been constantly monitoring. Depends on what the outside air temperature is. You have to set a specific windshield heat, but right now we don't need that yet. We only use main tanks. Carb air, that's when you would start putting up the heater, I guess, ideally. Yeah. Hydraulic system bypass, let's turn that on so we can deploy our flaps and landing gears later. Looking good. But yeah, I think this one at descent, during the descent, is when we actually would need to put in some carb heat. Make sure we don't get icing as we tone down the power settings. Speaking of toning down the power settings, that might be perfect to do now, as I see that our airspeed here is going fast beyond 250 knots, and we don't want that below 10,000 feet. The interesting thing is, I'm actually not sure what the descent power settings should be. So I'm going to set it like this, just because this is what I've seen that Doug was doing. He's setting it around 26 inches, manifold pressure, and 2400 RPM. Yes. This is the descent profile that I've seen him do. And then the BMEP would be around 80 to 100. But I can't actually see that in the manual. I've been sifting through the manual, the 333 page manual, and I couldn't find anything in regard to descent power. If you guys have more info on that, or maybe you found it in the manual or somewhere else, let me know in the comments, okay? Adjusting the carb air temperature heaters here, making sure we are outside the yellow zone but below the red line, the carb air temp. Looking good. We're almost at 2,500 feet now. Let's go ahead and arrest that descent. Level off here at 2,500. Overshooting it just a tad, that's okay. And we are, 37 miles from Puerto Princesa. That's perfect. That means we have around 17 miles to go to slow down. So I'll keep it at 90 BMEP here in terms of the power. And it's not obvious right now. It doesn't seem like the airspeed indicator is slowing down, but it will happen. It's just very slow. That's why we need 20 miles for it. Okay, I'm happy with that 2,500. I'll keep the descent. Actually, the descent, the slowing. Is that the term? Of the airspeed going. That's looking awesome. Look at our speed, guys. Right within flap extension speed. So let's go ahead and deploy flaps 20 right before we make our turn. Slow us down into flap extension speed for landing within that white speed tape arc. Approach checklist, landing gear down. Hydraulic pressure and air brake pressure looking good. Landing gear, 3 green lights, that's good. Mixture control, auto rich for all engines. This next one is interesting. Carb air temperature controls to cold. So I have to remove all the heater, but wouldn't that risk us into carb icing, especially during landing? Anyway, alright, so open the cowl flaps to 4 degrees. Approach speeds checking 134, 105. VAP and VREF for our current weight. Looking good, but we seem to be a bit slow. We don't know, 120 knots here. Oh, but we're now right at the glide slope, so let's arm the approach. Descent should be starting on its own. Let me double check. Yeah, that cylinder head on engine number 4 looks pretty hot, getting very close to 250 degrees there. Yikes. What am I doing wrong? Anyway, at least now we are starting our descent, following the glide slope, picking up speed as well. So now we should be able to extend our flaps, slow down a bit, lowering down BMEP to 100 as well, and keeping it there, not fiddling with the throttles on this plane. Going to be tweaking the flaps instead. Flaps 40. That autopilot is getting a bit wonky. Let's go ahead and disable it. Not sure if that's because of my yoke or some bug with autopilot, but not the most stable approach. Let's go and do this manually. We are almost fully set up though. That's the last bit of flaps. Extending. Full flaps now. 130 knots. Exactly where we want to be, except that we want to align ourselves a bit more here. We're a bit high. Just dipping down a little. Just a little to get back on the profile in there. Looks good. Little bit of crosswind coming from the right, nothing too fancy. 130 knots, maintaining. Looking pretty good. That's not too bad. Runway 27. Slowing it down. Going to idle thrust. Slowly. Flaring. And there we go. Reversers. Reversers to 30 inches. Helping to slow us down so we don't put unnecessary strain on the brakes. Looking good right there. Not too shabby, I like it. All in all, we managed. A couple of question marks in there, but I think we are headed the right way. There you go, we can check that out after landing. Let's maybe get out of the runway first, right? That's the good habit to build. Don't even think about retracting flaps until you are clear of the runway. Oh, it looks like there's someone here. Some AI. Let's open the cowl flaps fully so our engines can breathe. We don't want those cylinder heads overheating. That might be very unhealthy for the engine. Cowl flaps are open. Flaps, we can move up now. Looking good. Prop governor control full forward. Cabin depressurized. How do you do that? I'll have to look at that. Prop de-ice. We didn't have to do that. Didn't have to use that. So that is remaining off. But the landing lights we can turn off now. Good. Parking brake going on. Landing lights should be fully retracted by now. Position lights steady, landing lights are off. Transponder can now go to standby. This checklist is amazing. We have so many things we need to do already. I don't think having a list detracts anything from that, does it? I mean, even real pilots use it. So why the heck not? Alright, let's go ahead and shut down the engines here. Moving to idle cutoff, one engine at a time. 4, 3, 2, 1. Engine shutdown sequence. Love that. And now it's finally getting quiet. But I will surely miss the sound of those radial engines humming along. Last but not the least, engine 1. Oh, that is eerily quiet, my goodness. You guys let me know in the comments if you would like to tone down the sounds a bit more. I purposely increased the engine volume because I'm very addicted to that hum, but might not be everyone's cup of tea. Let me know. Alright, let's cut off the fuel tank here, move to the off position, turn off the beacons. Ignition switches can also go off. Yeah, and then followed by the inverter switches, which are these 3. Generator switches, which are these 4 on the right. Re-engage the gust lock, which is right near our right thigh. There we go. And the rest is on our own. And we have finished the checklist. We have finished our flight, guys. Congrats. Oh my goodness. Cannot believe we actually managed to survive without Doug. There we go. Awesome stuff. Hope you guys enjoyed this flight as much as I did and look forward to more. I'll definitely be streaming this one. There's our on-air results, looking pretty good. Alright, so catch you guys on the stream. I'll be streaming this on Twitch, twitch.tv/theclumsygeek gets you there. And I'll be probably posting the footage here anyway. The full length stream, we'll see. But yeah, thanks for watching. Have a nice day. Looking forward to your comments and catch you in the next one. Bye-bye. Clumsy flying.